Hello? Okay. Good evening. Today is June 25th, 2024. I'd like to call our very last council meeting to order of the season. Next, I'd like to call upon Councilmember Andrews to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand if you're able to.
Thank you for that. Mr. City Attorney, if you can please give us a closed session announcement. Or before you do that, Madam City Clerk, can you do a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, good evening. Councilmember Andrews.
Present.
Councilmember Bonilla Jr.
Present.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Present.
Councilmember Roach.
Present.
Councilmember Syra.
Present.
Councilmember Cermeño. Mayor Salinas.
Present. And
Thank you.
also sitting next to our city clerk is Rising Leaders intern for the city of Hayward, Raven Jenkins. And so I wanted to welcome Raven Jenkins to the city of Hayward this summer. And it's always good to have you here. And make sure you learn as much as you can in these coming weeks. So congratulations and welcome to the city. Now I'd like to call upon the city attorney for closed session report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The council did convene in closed session today at 5:30, and with all members present, no public comments. The council considered the following. One, the council met with its labor negotiators to discuss bargaining with all groups. The council gave direction to its negotiators, but otherwise took no reportable action. The council met with legal counsel to discuss pending litigation, the case of Roe versus Montenegro, and the council approved settlement in the amount of $1 million. The motion was moved by Councilmember Bonilla, seconded by Councilmember Andrews, and approved unanimously 7-0. That completes the report. The closed session adjourned at 6:43 p.m. That completes the report.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to move on to public comment. This is reserved for anybody in the audience or online that would like to make a public comment on something that is not on the agenda. I don't see anybody online with their hand up, and I do have a few cards here. So I'd like to first call upon Christina, is it Kavalnis? Thank you. Kavalnis. Oh, okay. I'm sure you'll say it, so I'll get it. Go right ahead.
Hello, everyone, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Christina Qualness, and I'm a resident of Hayward in the Beechwood community of homes in South Hayward. I'm here to talk a little bit about my concerns about 4th of July, my experiences of it in the past, and what's coming up next week. I don't know how many of you have had the time to read my email that I sent yesterday, but it's 8 pages long, so there's a lot, dense document there, and I'm going to try and summarize the best I can in 3 minutes. So, problems. Just in a nutshell, there's way too many people descending on my small community, and there's just not the infrastructure to support the volume of people that come in that short amount of time. And it is way too much to expect law enforcement to be able to handle that kind of crisis situation that comes up. There have been fires, there has been vandalism, there's been sideshow, driving behavior, there have been children less than 10 years old lighting and throwing fireworks. I have an olive tree and a lantana bush in my front that I'm concerned is going to go up in flames. This past week I've spent $2,500 getting arborists to come out and massacre my trees and my bushes to make sure that there's a defensible space around my residence. and I'm one person out of, I don't know how many people live there. I feel like my safety and my security are under threat, and I'm hoping that my being here will be an influence to proactive action and not reactive action. So what to do about the problem? I have 6 ideas. I don't know how constitutional they are. I don't know how fiscally feasible they are, but I'm going to put them out there and I'll let you do your jobs. So there are 2 access points to my community. One is at the corner of Hesperian and Tahoe Drive, and the other is at the corner of Arf and Morningside. I think having roadblocks and checkpoints for a maybe 36-hour period of time would be beneficial. People would be required to show their ID and proof of residence, and I think this would also be a good time to inspect cars for illegal fireworks. Not some cars, but every car. I think barriers built, temporary barriers built around the perimeter of the basketball court in Christian Pankey Park would be appropriate, something maybe chain link or barbed wire, I'm not sure. And then I also think possibly with our smart technology, having sprinkler heads stationed around or installed around the perimeter would be good. You know, at a push of a button, you can spray offenders and get those fireworks disabled. I can totally see how people might defer to the roadside, put the sprinklers along the side of the park, and being able to, you know, spray people that are bound and determined to break the law. I think I'm not a big fan of cameras and drones, but I think for a short duration of time, it would be appropriate to use that. I think speed bumps along Morningside Drive and Tahoe Drive would discourage sideshow driving behavior.
Christina, your time is up, okay. But we do have your email, and I did take notes on sort of the highlights here. I will talk to staff and figure out, I know that's been a problematic area for a very long time. I know the neighborhood very well. I used to live on Cobblestone Drive. Oh,
okay, we're neighbors.
So we get it, and we certainly know the historical problem in that neighborhood on 4th of July. So let me get with staff, and then we have your card too, and then we'll see what we can do, and we'll certainly reply to you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Peggy Guernsey.
Good evening, I'm Peggy Guernsey, and dear Hayward citizens and the City Council and staff here this evening, as well as those watching on Zoom, I would like to take my few minutes and speak about Captain Don Nicholson, retiring from the Hayward Fire Department after 23 years in service to us all. He is one of our great servants in Hayward and has chosen to run into burning buildings, rescue people, animals, property without thinking twice. He hasn't said no to protecting us, and I want to say thank you to him. He's also taken on the task of training and teaching any one of us in a 5-week classes in a program called CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, on how to prepare ourselves in case of a disaster for these past 10 years. In these 10 years, he's probably trained over 100 of us to be ready to help our family, our neighbors, and anyone in the community when we gather in a disaster area. Thank God that so far in my more than 53 years in Hayward, we haven't had a disaster that we've had to have this kind of trauma needed. But it's coming up someday, maybe. And I may be in some other town and there may be a flood. But I'll tell you, this training that he's taught us and this teaching is not part of his firefighter duties. He took it on because he cares. I've learned to correctly use a fire extinguisher and point it to the bottom of a fire. I've learned how to pack a wound and when to apply pressure. I even know how to lift a car and debris off somebody by using extra rods and not just my back. Captain Don will be replaced by Captain Marty Barbano, a fine fireman in our great department. Thank you, Captain Don. May your retirement be blessed, and welcome to Captain Marty. We at CERT are excited for you to start our new classes in our wonderful brand new fire station, I think number 6, that's down on West Winton, that has been already used and utilized for so many training purposes throughout our region. That money does come from us taxpayers. It does come from decisions that the City Council has made, and we've made the right decisions. Francisco, you've helped get that fire clinic down on Tennyson, that's never been done in the United States. So we're moving forward, but we also need to be prepared, and the CERT class is wonderful. Please, please tell Captain Don, he's worked here in your main building, that you thank him and you're glad he was there. And he's trained a bunch of us not to be silly, but to be smart.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is Alexandria Crivello.
Good evening, esteemed City Council members and Mr. Mayor Salinas. My name is Alexandra Crivello. I work for City Employees Associates, and I'm a labor relations attorney representing the hardworking Hayward Association of Management Employees, otherwise known as HAME. First off, thank you for your time tonight and for all of the city's collaborative efforts during this bargaining season to create the next contract for these diligent and loyal employees. We are very close to an agreement, but we are here tonight to beseech City Council for additional funds to go towards the cost of living adjustment for these employees. Hayward is known as the heart of the Bay, and the City of Hayward employees are what makes that heart beat. HAME employees specifically are relentless hard workers, often going without being able to use their sick and vacation leave because there's no one else to fill their duties. And they facilitate and supervise crucial ongoing city projects. The city has a great interest in retaining the skills, education, and expertise of these management employees. Unfortunately, there is a retention problem with other neighboring cities offering competitive packages, skilled city employees flocking to those cities, and human resources then abstaining from backfilling those positions, downsizing departments, and then contracting out those positions to corporations. This practice has led to a decrease in the quality of services and a loss of our sense of community. Over time, it has meant that less and less employees are able to live in the city that they have spent their careers working for. We humbly ask City Council to send a message to HAME employees that their knowledge, skill, hard work, and expertise is appreciated, and their cost of living, quality of life, and ability to pay their bills are a top priority to this great city. Our members take great pride in being City of Hayward employees. We ask that this be reflected in their cost of living adjustment and in your consideration for an increase to the city's bargaining authority. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Each and every one of you is so very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Our next speaker is Mr. Danny Megalis, of course, with the green shirt.
Good to see you. Good evening, Mayor Salinas, City Council, Executive Team, and citizens of Hayward that may be watching. I'm Danny Megalis. I work for the City of Hayward as the Water Resource Recovery Facility Maintenance Manager. I'm also president of HAME. That's the Hayward Association of Management Employees. I stand here tonight representing our membership in coalition with my brothers and sisters from IFPTE Local 21 and SEIU 1021. We are all currently negotiating with the city for our next MOUs. Competitive wages, recruitment, retention of staff continues to be a challenge. When there are vacant positions, there is a ripple effect that impacts all of us and all the citizens of Hayward. Staff takes on additional duties. They are spread thin, and the multitasking and long hours have a detrimental effect to the work-life balance that is important to all of us and our families. Timely completion of projects can be affected. We urge you to consider the importance of retaining Hayward workers whose experience, skills, dedication, and institutional knowledge are key to Hayward's success, both present and future. Many city staff are unable to reside in the city of Hayward. It is advantageous on many fronts to have staff reside in the city for which they work. Yet the gap between the cost of living in and around Hayward and the compensation city workers receive for the work continues to widen, making this a difficult proposition. I hope to continue my work in Hayward for years to come, but it concerns me when I see my coworkers leaving for other agencies, when I see vacant positions unfilled or filled temporarily while recruitments fail to yield qualified candidates. Hayward needs to retain the skill set and institutional knowledge that has made Hayward so successful and will be necessary for our continued success. I take great pride in working for the city of Hayward and its residents. I know my coworkers do as well. I hope I can continue to serve the city and the residents for a long time. I want to pass on my institutional knowledge to those who follow and to continue to make Hayward the best it can be. With the need to meet changing regulatory requirements, requiring a major improvement in our plant, staff consistency will be critical. I know this is true with other departments and their projects as well. We need to keep this going to take Hayward to new heights. Our negotiations are progressing, but there is still more work to do. We are close. There are still some issues that will have to be ironed out to bring a fair and equitable agreement. We are asking the city and its leaders to prioritize closing this gap between the cost of living and the compensation city workers receive. We appreciate your commitment to our city and its dedicated workers. I want to sincerely thank you for giving me this time tonight, and also I want to sincerely thank those of you who responded to our emails. See you soon.
Thank you, sir. You've always represented your groups professionally and courteously, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have online Joanne.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to say hi, City Council and staff. I'm a resident of Hayward, and I'm joining the Zoom meeting to express my support for incorporating a land acknowledgement into our City Council meetings, especially as we already take time to include a Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of our proceedings. I wanted to explain that land acknowledgements are a meaningful way to recognize the history and enduring presence of the indigenous people. As we gather, it is important to honor the Muwekma Ohlone tribe, the original inhabitants of this land/area. Acknowledging their history/connection to the land can foster a sense of respect and inclusivity within our community. I would really appreciate if you guys take this into consideration and maybe incorporate it into our meetings, because I think it would be really good. And I know Hayward is the first in a lot of things, so it would be good if it would be good to just take this into consideration. That's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I don't see any more hands, and I don't have any more cards, so I'd like to close public comment. Move on to our consent calendar. I have been asked to pull item number 7, and I know some of my colleagues up here have asked, and I just want to go down the line. Councilmember Syrup?
14 for some questions.
Number 14.
Number 7 for comment/question.
Number 7. Anybody else? Seeing none,
And,
so...
and Mayor Salinas, my apologies.
Yeah.
Would you like to allow the city manager to say a few public comments, or?
Oh, you know what? Did I skip that part? I apologize. You know what? That's this page. So interim city manager Mr. Clausen,
I forgive you. Worry not. A couple of announcements this evening. First is related to our library and the Pocket Cafe that we have there in the library. We have a cozy 400 square foot facility in the prime spot in downtown that we are looking to rent and find a new tenant to take over. And we have, we are looking at proposals in the next week. All applications will be due by July 11th. And so we are looking to find a great partner so that we can bring a great service to the community and to the visitors of our library. Next is I wanted to mention our pro-housing designation. We'd like to ask folks to help Hayward become designated a pro-housing community. The city invites community members and organizations to review and comment on an application being prepared to have Hayward designated a pro-housing community by the state of California. The pro-housing designation program to which the city is applying is managed by the California Department of Housing and Community Development and is intended to incentivize the creation of more housing affordable and accessible to Californians of all income levels. Cities designated as pro-housing can qualify for certain state funding grants to support housing development and alleviate homelessness, and have applications for funding prioritized by the Department of Housing and Community Development. To learn more about the city's application for pro-housing designation, visit the City of Hayward's website or attend the June 27th Planning Commission meeting starting at 7 p.m. right here in these chambers. The only other thing I have to mention is please stop setting off illegal fireworks. We will be out enforcing in the same ways that we have in recent past, trying to cut down on as many hot spots as we can, citing people who we catch. We will be out with trying to get video and pictures of folks and enforcing night of and the days to follow. So just keeping that on folks' radar, and that's all I've got.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Move on to our consent calendar, and I was asked to pull 4 and 7 and 4, and then so pulling those 2 items.
14.
Oh, I'm sorry, 14. I put 4. My bad. With those 2 off the agenda, and I can take a motion for the remaining.
I'll move.
Moved by Councilmember Goldstein, second by Councilmember Zermeño, and if there are no other questions, Madam City Clerk, you can take the roll, or we can vote.
If there are no objections, then we'll go ahead and.
If there's no objections, we just go ahead and pass these things unanimously. So thank you. Next, moving on to 7. So who wanted to make a comment on 7? Councilmember Andrews. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to hear more about consent item number 7, which is the Bay Area Community Services, Hayward Navigation Center operations, and operating an agreement with First Presbyterian Church of Hayward to operate year-round shelter at South Hayward Parish. And I understand that this is a contract for those services there, but wanted to hear more about a working group that has been formed to address this particular location near Weeks Park.
Yes, great. Thank you for that question, Councilmember Andrews. There's a Weeks Park working group that's been formed. They meet on a monthly basis. It includes members from the HARD Association, the library, the community center. It's directed, it also includes maintenance services and individuals from our LINK program in the police department. And so the next group meeting is going to be on July the 11th. Their last meeting was on May the 23rd. And they generally talk about some of the joint issues of making sure that the Weeks Park and Weeks Community Center stays functioning and clean, and also that we are not seeing spillover effects from the South Hayward Parish, making sure that we're able to direct those individuals that are there and at Weeks Park to different resources that they might need to help improve their quality of life.
Great, and I wanted to know if the working group could take a look at the Foothill Action Plan Working Group, as we've seen some movement there, and it's been documented what the goals are and the duration of the timeline of those goals to be met. Is there something similar that can be incorporated for this working group regarding weeks?
Absolutely. I think that we can look at the model of the Foothill Working Group as a place to start and make sure that we're holding our working group accountable to some changes and actionable decisions about improving the circumstances and the environment around Weeks Park and Weeks Community Center.
Okay, thank you.
And then Councilmember Syrup, did you have, yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really happy to see that we're working closely with South Hayward Parish and making them one of our line items in supporting our homeless community. I was curious around BACS and this funding for the Navigation Center. Would you mind providing a short update on where we are with St. Regis at the moment, and will this funding be part of assisting with that transition to the St. Regis Center?
And so this is a little bit separate than the St. Regis project. So the St. Regis project is not a project that the city is funding really in any way, but what we are looking at doing is moving our navigation center away from Depot Road, but onto the St. Regis campus. And so this is a continuation of the services that BACS currently provides to us for operating our navigation center that currently resides at Depot Center. So we will continue to have services provided to those individuals as we move to a navigation center on the St. Regis campus.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up, will that transition be happening this year, or do we have an estimate or a timeline? It's been a little quiet on that front. So
It's not going to happen this year. There's still some kind of zoning issues that we are exploring. I believe it's going to happen in the next year to year and a half, but I can get you a specific answer on that question.
okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
And then Councilmember Roach.
Actually, it's okay. Councilmember Sarab asked my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I do have some public comment cards on item number 7, and I believe Tyrus Washington, can you come up?
How y'all doing today?
Good. Yeah. Hit the button.
I'm on.
Red means go here.
Yeah, I'm a resident at the First Parish Shelter Place at the church. But I've been there for like 6 months. I'm a resident of Hayward. They had put me on with a job for the street team downtown Oakland. So we in progress with that, though. They helping me with housing, Section 8, me getting back with my daughter, getting me up on my feet. You know, they help people with that. They passing out food to the community for the food pantry and everything. So it's like we became a family, you know. And it's like they helping a lot of people, you know, and we go up out there passing out food and stuff and having church and stuff at the park, too. So everybody is not exempt, though. Everybody is welcome, you know, like a family. And it's a beautiful thing, though, the library and everything. Like everybody that's getting along peaceful and harmony. But this place right here has changed my life drastically, you know. And I love that place, though. I just hope that y'all can find it in your heart and then just, you know, just help us out, though, because we love that place, you know. That's all I got to say.
Well, good. Well, I appreciate it.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you. Mr. Israel Guerrero. Yeah.
Well, what is important on a shelter, his installation works to give roof, alimentation, and security to victims, to enemies, to human enemies and animals. What is the importance of the refugee? So the refugee is a necessity, a human necessity, fundamental, especially for those who have experienced trauma or violence. What is important of refugee? It gives protection and security against elements,
Take your time.
Giving well-being to people and communities. What gives a refugee? gives services, protection, shelter, the name is it, and attention to women and his children who lives in situation of violence and familiar violence. So that helps most of all women with children who have violence, those kind of needs. So I'm a bit nervous.
Take your time.
Why the refugee protect the purpose of refugee is to give protection against ambient exteriors like the rain. When people are on the outside, they can be so bad for people because the rain, the convection of the air, too windy, can give diseases to people because it can be bad for like flu, things like that. Cold because the temperature of the ambient is not steady, like being inside some room. It can be like up and down, and that can give you diseases to people as well, flu as well.
Israel?
Yeah.
Speak in the microphone so we can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Sorry. Okay.
Yes.
And a refugee. Sorry. So that's the main. So those things are the things that can help people with. In my case, I'm getting like a legal help from the refugee because not only gives people those kind of attention that I say already, it also provides like different kind of services. In my case, like legal immigration because I've been struggling with that thing from a long time ago. So now I found a lady, Tiffany, that's her name, Tiffany. She wanna help me with people that wanna come and see my situation. So let's see what can they do about that. And also I'm looking for jobs needs that not only me but a lot of people need a job. Yeah, and.
Yeah, Mr. Guerrero, I'll give you a second or two to close your point, and then we can move on.
Okay, yeah. Jobs as well, and also not only that, because the shelter helps people to improve themselves, and people can learn. Not only like there's a lot of people like have been struggling with drugs and all different kind of things like I said before, like. Violence from bad men. Yeah. So, and shelter provides intelligence to women and services to people, so people can change and from being like drug addicts and being like behaviors and
Mr. Guerrero.
So they can improve themselves.
Mr. Yeah, it's okay. You have to stop.
Thank you.
But thank you very much. I gave you a little time because Mr. Washington gave you another, minute or so. So, Mr. Martinez, I believe, Frank Martinez.
Thank you, everybody. It's the first time I got to see this on TV. Now I'm finally got up here as a talker. So I want to thank all you council members. The South Paris I'm from, I'm a homeless person, and I got there with a beginning of where I'm at now is I got housing. I'm really like a family there because they improved my life. I'm very, very grateful for what they done. So I really want to say to all you guys, I hope you can help them out because it's a big improvement for the people that are homeless. And we can't lose that because Hayward's a beautiful place. And I just want to say, how long I lived in Hayward? All my life. I'm 63 years old.
Nice.
So I'm really thankful to be up here. I never knew what it would be like to talk, but I'm here. So thank you too.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Mr. Horner, and he only gets 15 seconds. No, I'm kidding.
No joke. You can bring a pastor up here. I'm going to pass around the offering plate. Council members, staff, thank you all so much for allowing us to be here today. I don't really have much to say except for these three gentlemen gave up their dinner to come here tonight to be able to share with you what has been the impact of being able to be indoors, being able to support each other. They help each other. They're there to support each other. You see, one gentleman has a job. One gentleman has been matched to housing. He actually just went and picked his paint colors 2 weeks ago. And we have another gentleman who's receiving legal services. But those things we're not able to do while people are out on the street. Only it's hard to find people. It's hard to find consistency. It's hard for them to keep their IDs. But what you are doing today will match all of the other funding sources that we put together to be able to keep us open, to be able to serve another 1,174 people like we did this past fiscal year between that site and our other site, to be able to serve over 76,000 instances of service, from meals to showers to laundry to case management sessions. What you're doing today, if you all find it in your heart to vote for this, is making that opportunity extend. I know we had talked about the working group. I've been made contact. I've been invited for that July meeting. So hopefully we can put together some bigger systemic game plans to have larger change in the community. I was raised right there on Rieger, which is the street over from Weeks. So that's where my 3 children learned how to play baseball, is at Weeks Park. One of the things that happens each month is they came up with the idea to get vests that have our logo on the back, and they work together with us to clean up Roosevelt, LeMay, Gomer, Patrick, and specifically they wanted to clean up the playground at Weeks Park every single month. So we do that. We go over there and we clean that up. I know a lot of times when we think about a category, we believe that it's all working together. You could speak with Hayward PD, Hayward Fire. They would let you know that a lot of the issues that we see over there are not necessarily connected. But we would love to be a part of that solution. There's a lot more work we need to do, a lot more resources we need to put forward to be able to address those needs that you're seeing in that community. I want my grandchildren one day to be able to play in that park. And we try to fight that every single day to make sure that that park is safe, that library is safe. So thank you all so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. I appreciate it, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming out. Okay, so I'm going to close number 7. And Madam City Clerk, do we need to vote on each one? Okay, so can I get a motion for item number 7?
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilmember Andrews and simultaneously moved by 2 council members, but I'll defer to Bonilla. Madam City Clerk, you can take the roll, or take the that's right. We have to vote individually on this. There you go. And Mr. Horner, wait a second, because you'll see it's 7 yeses. It passes unanimously. Congratulations. Our next item is item number 14, and I believe Councilmember Syrup had a question on item 14.
Thank you, Mayor. So regarding the RFP for the proposed Public Safety Center site design, will this include a community engagement component in the RFP, and what will that look like if so?
Yeah, certainly we can.
I want to thank all you people for being there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's something that we've talked about. When we do the RFP, it will simply be to engage the organization who will do the work and the design work, but certainly that will be part of the effort that goes on there to figure out what it is that the community wants to see the most, the services that we think will be valued most there and are best suited for that location.
So, I mean, I'm happy to support the item tonight, but I want to make sure that it's baked in, that whoever is brought in understands that beyond just what someone might hear in public comment, there is more proactive outreach around getting that kind of feedback.
I can assure you of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, are you finished? Yeah. Okay, Councilmember Roach.
Just a quick question to follow up on that. I mean, I'm going to support the item, but will there be like a plan A, B, and C as far as, what potential funding might be for that in the future? In a site design?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are talking at this point putting shapes onto a piece of paper.
Yeah, okay, it's
I
just
mean,
conceptual.
we're at the very infancy here, so
Okay.
we're,
Great.
it's as conceptual as it gets at this point.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, seeing no other, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilmember Goldstein, second by Councilmember Zermeño. And if there are no other questions, Madam City Clerk, we can vote. And it unanimously passes 7-0. Next is item number 16. It's supportive housing programs, work session on proposed zoning text amendments to the Hayward Municipal Code related to supportive housing programs associated with implementation of the Hayward 2023-2031 housing element. And this is going to come to us by way of our Development Services Director, Ms. Sarah Bowser.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. It's great to be here tonight. I am going to quickly turn this over to the esteemed Associate Planner, Taylor Richard, who is going to walk the council through this work session item and get your feedback as we continue to move forward with this project. And this all stems from programs that came out of our adopted housing element, so this is part of implementation. And I will turn it over to Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and Hayward community. As Sarah said, I'm Taylor Richard, an associate planner with the City of Hayward Planning Division. Tonight, I will be presenting some recommendations to implement actions within the 2023-2031 Hayward housing element related to supportive housing development. Before I cover the recommendations, I want to share some background and information on the project. One of the main impetuses for this project is that California is currently in a housing and shelter crisis with more than 171,000 people experiencing homelessness daily. Our community is affected by this crisis with approximately 512 people experiencing homeless in Hayward, up 30% from 2022. In the past decade, the Hayward City Council has adopted several emergency resolutions and plans to help address this growing issue. These resolutions have resulted in the development of our Hayward Navigation Center, approval of a transitional youth shelter, and the continual operation of many other shelters, including South Hayward Parish in Hayward. Many of these resolutions included the temporary suspension of local planning and zoning regulations, as they currently serve as barriers to meaningfully and creatively serving our unhoused population. Last year, the council adopted the Hayward housing element, composed of goals, policies, programs, and actions to help meet our community's need. This project aims to fulfill several actions within the element, with the overall goal of creating a housing continuum, taking people from homelessness all the way to market rate housing. We are in the first phase of this project, which includes background research, stakeholder engagement, and these work sessions. We anticipate having draft regulations in early fall and adoption hearings in the winter. So far, the stakeholder outreach has involved community meetings with local service providers, affordable housing developers, educational facilities, and faith-based organizations, and several meetings with internal city staff. These meetings have resulted in robust feedback, including a need for a wide range of supportive and transitional housing, a need for small independent living facilities, the need to expand allowances for licensed group homes, the desire to locate supportive housing near public facilities, grocery stores, medical services, and transit, and requiring supportive housing have wraparound services, 24-hour staff close by or on-site, laundry facilities, showers, cooking facilities, internet, and locked storage. Based on our background research and this outreach, staff has drafted a series of recommendations to expand supportive housing options and create that continuum of housing in Hayward. The recommendations fall into 5 categories: general cleanup, single resident occupancies, group homes, safe parking, and shelters. I will not be covering the general cleanup recommendations in this presentation, but they are detailed in the staff report. As such, I will start by covering the recommendations for single resident occupancy housing types. Single resident occupancies, also referred to as SROs, are small units for a single individual with independent and shared facilities. Our outreach found that there is a great need for this housing type, especially for individuals transitioning out of homelessness or congregate housing. Currently, SROs are only permitted within one zoning district, but we recommend allowing these in additional commercial and high-density residential districts with an administrative use permit. The use permit will allow us to add conditions of approval to minimize nuisances and revoke approval if needed. We are also proposing requiring a management plan that addresses the management and operation of the SRO, rental procedures, safety, and the security of the residents, and building maintenance. Lastly, we are proposing to draft development standards related to the unit size, common open space areas, what facilities should be shared versus independent, and to ensure that these SROs are consistent across Hayward. Moving on to the recommendations related to group homes. Group homes are a congregate housing type, typically for individuals seeking permanent housing or individuals in need of care/supervision, such as seniors or children. There are two types of group homes, licensed and unlicensed. Licensed group homes require a thorough permitting process with the California Department of Social Services. Currently, licensed and unlicensed group homes with 6 or fewer residents are permitted by right within all residential zoning districts. We are proposing to allow additional residents by right for licensed group homes and allow additional residents with an administrative use permit for unlicensed group homes. The previous two housing types I just covered were focused on creating transitional and community housing, while the next two housing types are focused on creating emergency and low barrier to entry housing. Shelters and low barrier navigation centers are currently allowed in industrial zoned areas on city-owned land, in certain zoning districts along Mission Boulevard, and in the general commercial zoning district with a conditional use permit. Staff recommends allowing this housing type in additional commercial and mixed-use areas near existing encampments. Furthermore, we propose drafting development standards related to the number of beds, parking, waiting/intake areas, on-site management, proximity to other shelters, length of stay, lighting, security measures, and locked storage. Moving on to safe parking. Safe parking provides parking sites where people experiencing homelessness can legally park and stay in their cars overnight. Currently, safe parking is not permitted in any zoning district, and staff proposes allowing this use on properties owned by a faith-based organization or a community-based organization in only specific zoning districts, with approval of an administrative use permit. As I stated previously, the use permit allows us to add conditions of approval and revoke said approval, which minimizes nuisances. Staff proposes requiring these sites have a permanent bathroom, kitchen, laundry facility, which will be open to the Safe Park residents, and drafting performance standards related to the hours of operation, maintenance of the facility, and requiring vehicles be operable. It is important to note that several neighboring cities, including San Leandro, Castro Valley, and Union City, have implemented safe parking programs with similar regulations that have been quite successful. That concludes my presentation. I am more than happy to answer any questions you have about the recommendations in this project. And then tonight, I would appreciate feedback from the City Council specifically on the following questions. Does City Council support staff's recommendations? Are there any other operational or performance standards that should be included or excluded from the housing types discussed today? And are there any recommendations or regulations staff should consider when we're preparing our draft zoning amendments? Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very concise presentation. Appreciate that. This is a work session, before I call upon my colleagues, I'd like to open up for public comment. And I don't have any public comment cards now, and then I don't see anybody online. Of course, I knew Ms. Roe Aguilar's hand would go up. So Ms. Roe Aguilar, go right ahead. We can't hear you if you're talking. Go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
Sorry, thank you. I read through the staff report, and I like the statement that the city will promote other types of alternative housing options, especially since homelessness has gone up in Hayward 30%. I'm very sad to hear that. And I think that's going to be the trend for the short, at least for the short future. Now, I don't see in here the H word. And I think you know what I mean by the H word, hotels and of course motels, but I'm going to use the word hotels. Now, according to the key feedback from the public, there's 4 key feedback areas. Allow a wide range of types of supportive and transitional housing. And the greatest housing need based on the feedback is small, independent living spaces with limited or no shared facilities. That is the definition of a hotel. Boom. Provide wraparound services 24 hours with staff close by and located close to public facilities, grocery stores, medical services, and transit. Most hotels, or not most hotels, but a lot of hotels fulfill those requirements and those specifications. So hotels address practically all of the needs and criteria put forth in the feedback and can be scaled up or down depending on the change in need. I don't understand the city's reluctance to at least mention it in your report. Anyway, I do support the staff recommendation, but it must include the flexibility in the code, and maybe this is why it's not mentioned, to lease or buy hotel as supportive and transitional housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Peggy Guernsey.
My name is Peggy Guernsey, and I wasn't prepared to speak on this item, but hearing about the group homes being licensed or unlicensed, I have had 3 friends living in group homes, one almost across the street from the West Winton Fire Station. Most of them are not getting correct meals. They're not always getting breakfast. If they are, I had one friend who was trying to go to Chabot College, and she was told that she could not take her lunch, not even a sandwich or an apple with her for lunch. I have a friend that lives over by St. Rose Hospital, and the guy had a shed in the backyard, and he had 6 different people living in his house, and he kept getting, what we thought were inspectors called on them, and there were people with mental health needs, elderly people that were allowed to just walk the streets, and that we never did find out if they were licensed or unlicensed. These places, and one of my friends over on West Winton, the guys weren't supposed to smoke. They smoked anyway. They had fires over there, but they were allowed to stay open because we didn't have space in Hayward. Well, if we are providing space, it has to be safe. These people, if they're taking their SSI money and giving it for room and board, they need to be fed and be safe. They need to be able to have a space, whether it's a closet or a cubbyhole, that they can lock up their items and not have them stolen. We need to be able to also follow up that these seniors who, for whatever reason, are not in care facilities, but they are in group homes, and some of them have been wonderful. I've seen friends at church that have opened them and they've done, but they're charging an exorbitant fee. My friends that are on SSI could never afford to live there. But they're getting 3 square meals a day, clean sheets and that. This kind of thing has to be monitored. And what the state of California doesn't have for preschool, we don't have for housing, and that's inspectors. I know that means hire more government employees, that's more tax dollars, but we've got to protect people. And if Hayward's going to say, you know, we're going to put these facilities out there, you 7 people have to be responsible for that, as well as me. And not just calling Access Hayward and having these people examined. Because sometimes, oh, let's clean up the space, but it's still dangerous. So please be aware of that. It's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my last card, so I'd like to close public comment. Close public comment and then return here to the dais and our council member Zermenio.
Mayor, thank you, and Tyler Richard, thank you very much. A very, very good presentation, thorough. I love your first slide. That's very sequential. Starts from the bench all the way to market. So excellent, good choice. A couple of questions and comments at the same time. Let's see. So we've done quite a bit, and I think we still need to do more. And one of my dreams is to have every one of the 102 cities in the Bay Area do what we are doing and what we have done. And that would really go a long ways to solving this problem. Okay, so 502 individuals have been identified as homeless. This process is to find housing for these 512, and have we identified those who don't want a house, who don't want to live under a roof? Do we have that number?
So we don't have the information about the 512 that we found at the point in time count about whether or not they would want housing. But the project is to implement our housing element actions, which we committed to the state that we would fulfill, and it's to look at the broader issue of all the housing insecure population, which includes the unhoused individuals, it includes seniors, it includes families, and it includes those who are housing insecure, you know, like couch surfing and stuff, and vulnerable to becoming homeless. So the project is really looking at creating that continuum of housing, really hitting people at everything. I think we've done great success building affordable housing and building that market rate, but we are still kind of missing that in between from a shelter all the way to the market house.
Okay. I didn't quite understand encampment. I kind of thought that what I was reading, that if we were to find an encampment, that we would then go in and establish services near that encampment. So I read it wrong?
So the idea is to allow, and obviously the zoning regulations are just regulations, they just set it, and then developers or service providers come along and use them. But the idea is to pick zoning districts where we know there are known encampments to allow shelters and other supportive housing to be set up. Obviously, we're asking for your feedback tonight, and you guys can tell us if those are the correct places where these services should be provided. But from our service providers, they said that, you know, most of these people do not have cars or can't get to them, so locating these shelters and other services near existing encampments will ensure that they get used.
So I'm thinking of the individual on Jackson Street who camps out on Jackson with quite a bit of material. It looks like he's a hoarder. Would he be an individual who would qualify for one of these programs?
So the county has a coordinated entry system, which dictates when people get into certain types of housing. And I'm not entirely familiar like what the shelters would do and who they would fit if they have to follow that coordinated entry system. But it is really looking to just house our community members and those who are experiencing housing in Hayward.
Okay. So I do like what's listed on page 4, talks about promoting, that this project is promoting the development of a wider variety of supportive housing. That's tremendous. That's very good. Okay, you answered my question about existing encampments. We will not allow an encampment we will try to move or try to solve the problem of this particular encampment, correct?
Yeah, we are not recommending any like safe camping programs at this point in time.
Okay, all right. Now, of the recommendations, you have 3 recommendations. So, the recommendation number 1, I do support it. That's an easy one. On number 2, maybe some kind of you asked for what could be added. So perhaps some kind of a metrics where we would then list who has been contacted, what are they looking for, what do they need? Was it the heart who contacted them? Was it whatever, what is the result? When do we see a result? Some kind of a matrix so we can see, and then a report to us, perhaps every 6 months, as to what has been happening. And then that's on number 2. Number 1 is fine. And what is number 3? Can you put it back on the screen, please?
The third question is, are there any recommendations or regulations staff should consider, any other ones while preparing these zoning regulations?
I think I've touched them all. So I thank you, and let's keep up the good work. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Richard, this is outstanding work. It's, I'm sure it's taken quite a long time, and you've no doubt done a lot of research and talked to a lot of people, and it shows in the quality of the work output. So I just have a couple of very pointed questions about safe parking. I have a little bit of a concern about potentially becoming overly restrictive about operable and non-operable vehicles. That for some people is a transitory state that they have very little control over. And so my recommendation would be to discuss that in partnership with the organization that is offering safe parking, and perhaps advise them that they may want to tap into their local community members for expertise on fixing cars or providing storage. For example, one of the common things that I see with a vehicle looking like it's inoperable is that it's overpacked with stuff. So, clearly they need some help with that. The second item relative to that also is RVs. So I didn't see anything in the documentation that talked about it. I know that we have, that as City Council has asked staff to look into an RV safe parking. I realize it's a completely different beast than safe parking for cars, but there are a number of RVs that are parked around town that are distressing the local neighbors and frankly not really serving the purpose of the people that are living there. They're getting by, but they don't have utility hookups or sewage hookups, water hookups, and so forth. And so I would just ask that you try to include that going forward. And then in the matter of hours of operation, I've heard from our community operators that overly restrictive hours also creates a burden for people. Sometimes they, for a variety of reasons, can't get in before a 10 o'clock curfew, and they find it very, very difficult to leave at a 5 o'clock, especially if they've been unhoused for a period of time, meaning that they're not sleeping well. And when they do finally find shelter, they sometimes sleep continuously for a month or longer. And so again, I think hours of operation would be something that we should provide some consultation and some resources and make some connections with those folks that are willing to operate these facilities so that they can actually be accommodating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Syro.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for this report to you and your team. This is really a comprehensive update, and I'm excited. So overall, I'm in agreement with the recommendations. I have a few thoughts here. I'm also just excited to see us taking some first steps towards enabling safe parking partnerships. I know this has been a topic of discussion for some time, and I also want to thank Peggy and Ro for chiming in to provide some perspective. Let's start with safe parking. I agree with Councilmember Goldstein here that I worry that the requirements might be too strict. I had an opportunity to tour First Presbyterian safe parking site, which I believe is the only one in the area, in the surrounding area. And they have a lot of those resources that are listed as requirements here, such as bathrooms, kitchens, showers. But for the safe parking spots, I think they have a dedicated outhouse toilet. And so, my concern would be if a facility was trying to set up a safe parking site, but didn't have the facilities to have a permanent fixture, but rather a temporary fixture like an outhouse, they wouldn't be able to operate a safe parking site and deprive our community of that resource. So my general feedback here is not to nitpick, but to see the ways in which we might be a little bit too restrictive around the safe parking requirements as have currently been outlined. I also appreciated the comments around security and reporting requirements. I think Councilmember Zermeño had mentioned, are we collecting any kind of metric? Homelessness is a spectrum, and it's not linear for a lot of folks. And so I'm curious what ways we'll be collecting information on folks, what reporting requirements we're putting in place, and how we might use some of that information in collaboration with other partners to help facilitate people finding permanent housing. Jumping over to SRO zoning now, I'm really excited about this. I think SROs are a really very important component of solving the housing crisis for folks and producing or creating low-cost housing for individuals. I'm seeing commercial and high-density zoning. Does the commercial aspect relate to hotels? Are hotels classified as commercial? Could you help me understand that?
So, to Ro Aguilar's point, the kind of what came out of developing these SRO regulations is looking at the model we used during COVID to house a bunch of people in hotels and kind of create these independent spaces. Our commercial districts, several of them do allow hotels, and so it would be in a similar district where these uses are kind of already allowed.
Okay, thank you. So hotels could be included currently in what's been written. Okay, that's good to hear. And then, when we look at a map of zoning for the city of Hayward, the majority of it is single family. I'm not advocating necessarily for us to incorporate single family or low density, but I would like to see medium density be included in this too, just to give us more options, given that everything is dependent on that use permit. I would defer to the city to take the appropriate community feedback. Not every medium density lot would be ideal for a grouping of SROs, but I just want to give the city more options to address this crisis rather than limiting ourselves prematurely, because I don't know when this will come back again. I think those are all of my initial comments for now. Mayor, I'll warn you that I might jump back in for a second bite, but I'm really interested in hearing my colleagues' thoughts, and they might inspire some more going forward. But overall, thank you.
Absolutely. Councilmember Roach.
Thank you, and thank you to my colleagues. As I had similar questions about the RV parking, and just to follow up on that, can we ask you to include at least looking into that? Because I know it's a different proposition than safe parking.
There are several safe parking programs that allow RVs. Union Cities doesn't, but that doesn't mean that ours could not include allowing safe parking. What I would stray from is that I talked to our utilities department and stuff, putting in those what is needed to do RV hookups is quite costly and quite expensive. So I think I don't see any issues allowing RVs to park there and then using the permanent facilities that are on site. But it's up to the council about what they want these regulations to look like.
Okay, yeah, because I think you're right. I would just want them, because a lot of I've also toured the one in Castro Valley, and then I toured one in Fremont, and it seemed to work really well. And they did not allow RVs, because I think I would be at first asking just that they be allowed to park overnight somewhere safe. And it was like a rotating program to all these different faith-based organizations. So you can't stay there. You have to sort of move on. Maybe the restrictions, I think that was a good comment about looking to see that they're not overly restrictive. But I know most of these organizations need their parking the next day, either because there's a school on site or, people are coming to work. So I know some of that just bumps up against actual sort of working hours at these organizations. So I guess I would ask that you sort of add RV to this. And then, as far as the hookups, I don't think I'm necessarily asking that. I would like to look into that in the future, maybe not under this program. So, and also, I really want to thank you for just being creative and trying to find spaces for our unhoused residents, because it is obviously, there's a whole range of what we can possibly do. And then around the SROs, so it sounds like, I had similar questions, so it sounds like a hotel can be an SRO, but does an SRO need to have on-site services and management?
We're proposing that it has to have a management plan that clearly spells out how it will be managed and how the renting procedures will go in order to just minimize nuisances associated with SROs.
Yeah, great. And that's sort of my question, because I just saw on the news, I think it was an SRO in San Francisco, where basically the management had abandoned it. And so it had become a drug haven, a place of drugs, like in complete disarray. And so I know that, the best practices of an SRO is on-site management, on-site services. And I know that's not always possible, and that these are people who are not paid well. And so this is a sort of, continuing problem, and also funding sources might run out. So I just wonder, what can we do, whether that's a city thing or a county thing, to have basically management services in escrow or something, because it doesn't work if that falls apart, if that management falls apart. And I kind of put that in group homes as well. I think to some of the comments from Peggy that, this idea of, the ideal is an SRO with, proper management on site. But it does so often fall apart, and then it becomes hazard for the community and the residents that live there. And so I guess that's one of my questions. Is it a city or county issue when it comes to inspecting these homes?
So licensed group homes are through the Department of Social Services, so they're all district, so they have like a local one that serves the Alameda County region and does inspections. Our fire department also does inspections for certain group homes while they're through their licensing process to ensure that these homes are safe to have this amount of occupancy. So that is how that program is managed. It's not through the city.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess what I would say, if we, I appreciate rezoning and trying to find SROs in some of the commercial spaces, that we have some extra step where we say, okay, what is the continued management plan here, and what is, plan B if such and such funding runs out, so that we're not setting up these residents for failure.
Yeah, I think the AUP process, the use permit process, is what our mechanism in order to ensure that these services are going on. And then our code enforcement department enforces conditions of approval. So if mismanagement arises, we can look at their use permit, the code enforcement can get involved. And worst case scenario, if they're not following the conditions of approval, we could revoke the use permit. Okay, great. So we have a mechanism to step in. And then, let's see, safe parking finally. As far as, I don't know if you're asking us for data, some of the metrics we're asking for, I would really love it that we're always collecting place of origin. I'm just curious if, just anecdotally, I've seen new faces in town. If we're going to house them, it'd be nice to know, what percentage of people are, of Hayward residents that we're housing versus, regional people. And then the other thing I was thinking was, so 512 residents, and I'm guessing some set of those would need really intense services, and I know we're potentially creating space for that to happen. But and I've heard from some of our first responders that there's a very small subset of those that are using vast amount of our resources in the city. Just multiple 911 calls, lots of intervention, as you all know. And I just wonder, if they're costing us, I don't know, $1 million a year. I heard there's one guy that's potentially costing us upwards of that amount of money, or has in the past. Is there some point where we say, okay, this guy we're willing to basically say, here's $300,000 to put you in a facility somewhere, rather than just continually piecemeal it, if we know it's 5 people like this? And I ask this on the flip side, that if there's a third of our 512 people that are simply just unhoused, that they actually just really need a door and a key, would it cost us less resources in the city as far as interventions and constant visits from I don't know, hard team? Would it be less to just pay them a lease every year? And I'm just wondering, because I know there are some other cities that are doing this. Yeah, I can. Our community services department has been a partner on this project, and so I will bring that information back to Carol, and I think that could be a program that her department looks at.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it. And otherwise, just to answer the 3 questions, I am in support of the recommendations, and then just my added comments is what I would add to that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you, Mayor. And great report. I really appreciate the creativity in kind of these zoning changes. The first is, do I support these recommendations? I do, and I really like the variety of options that we have, ranging from the SROs to the safe parking and pretty much everything in between. I do agree that when we look at safe parking initially, instead of trying to find something different for RVs, let's just look at how we could include them there. You know, I don't think we need to go with the hookups immediately, but looking at that a little bit more long-term, I think would be great. As it relates to safe parking, I know that we said, you know, we want to require permanent bathrooms, kitchen, and laundries, but I was actually visiting one of these sites in Livermore, and they brought in, like, I think Tide came in with some laundry, you know, facilities on some trucks. There was a mobile kitchen that had come in. So does it have to be permanent, or is there some flexibility around that? I mean, I think having, you know, these basic requirements of bathroom, kitchen, and laundry facilities, you know, that are open and available to the residents that are parking here is important, but I'm just not sure that permanent is required.
I think we would be willing to explore that. I do think permanent bathroom facilities would be something that some city staff, including like water pollution source control and our utilities department, would definitely want to see, but some of the services you don't need as often, like showers or laundry facilities, I think we could explore having them be temporarily on site.
So why wouldn't porta potties work?
I could explore that with them and see if porta potties are a thing, but they would need to permanently stay there. They couldn't like leave and then come back. We would need porta potties at all times that Safe Park is open.
Oh yeah, at all times it's open. I agree with that. But it wouldn't need to be there when it's not open, is my point. So you can roll these things in and set up, because that's what I seen when I toured the one in Livermore. A lot of the things that were out there were temporary and were rolled in, you know, in preparation for the opening and closing of the facility. Let's see here. As it relates to the third question, you know, are there any other recommendations? What I really appreciate too is how we've integrated these zoning changes really across our city and, you know, in different areas, including residential, commercial, and mixed use, because I'm really not a fan of clustering all of this in one particular part of the community. So I appreciate how we're leveraging that. You know, there was a comment made earlier, you know, about how many people are we going to house in Hayward versus regionally. Would you mind explaining, you know, the coordinated entry system that the county has just a bit more? Because we don't really have control over these 512 people in Hayward getting placed in any of these units, because there's this whole county system that has a coordinated front door. And I think it's important for us to sort of understand that, because as much as we want to go out and, you know, pick 30 people to house, unfortunately, we've come to agreements as the county as we tackle this issue regionally that I think would be important, you know, maybe for us to understand, if not tonight, another night, but just really how that coordinated entry system works and what that does and doesn't do for Hayward. Because it does expand where we can place our residents across the county, but then it also restricts us, limiting any of our own housing that we're building here, you know, for the 512 people in Hayward. But any comments on that?
I can't speak with great detail about the coordinated entry system. Our housing manager, Christina Morales, is online, and she may be able to provide a little bit of detail.
Excellent. Ms. Morales?
I think she's getting promoted so that
okay.
she can provide the little detail that I think she has. Otherwise, I think staff's more than happy to provide or look into that and provide that as a follow-up to council.
Yep. I think that would be helpful, because sometimes it can be frustrating, you know, when we're like, wow, we just, you know, built a navigation center and we are potentially looking at expanding it, and we're going to expand it for 50 more people. So does that mean Hayward's going to be housed? And the answer, quite frankly, is, you know, maybe, depending on how the placement works when you when you call one of these entry points to the coordinated entry system. So I just wanted to make that little point. But other than that, those are my.
Hi, I'm available. I don't have much detail, but I know that there's a prioritization system that coordinated entry uses, and it's looking at all the individuals countywide. So it's definitely, I think our community services team would have more information on this, but the council member is correct that we don't necessarily, the efforts that we put into place are improving the situation countywide, but we may not necessarily see it by the individual we see on the street is going to get placed in housing with our immediate efforts.
Thank you. Appreciate that. But Excuse me, but nonetheless, these recommendations are great and you have my full support. So thank you for being so creative and looking at such a broad spectrum of options to deal with this crisis that we have on our hands.
Thank you. Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I wanted to know if we could also look at, one of the bullet points says here, the city should offer trainings for service providers about the development process. I think we should also include utilities and different permits and all that. So would that be something that can be coordinated with our utility agencies, not just what's required with the city of Hayward?
Yeah, we can look at when we have draft regulations, we begin implementing it. We envisioned using a similar process to like the sidewalk vendors and hosting workshops for our community organizations, and I can coordinate with other permitting departments to ensure everybody at the development table is there so people can learn.
And are there any other agencies would you consider for a coordinated effort in terms of education that you've seen possibly hold up development process for folks?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I will think about it and we'll be sure to include all the challenging community partners to make sure that service providers know how to take their development from a idea all the way to operational.
Yep, I would consider maybe even looking at what state departments are required, because I know that with schools, that community care licensing can be the holdup versus the city or versus a utility. So if we could look at what other agencies they need to have to reduce that, that would be great. And then also wanted to know if there was any communication happening with some of the agencies that help with these populations, because some of the agencies I talked to, they said that it's not necessarily the physical facility that's an issue. It's more of having an ID and having issues with keeping stable employment, and that kind of gets them back into their cars or back onto the street instead of inside an actual facility. So just wanted to see if there is some coordination that could happen. Maybe it's with community services or with the agencies that we provide funding to, that there could be some kind of connection made with that facility so they can like, we'll do all this work for facilities, but then they can't stay in them for whatever reason.
Yeah, I'll coordinate with our community services department to look into that. I think part of our recommendations are for some of these lower barrier to entry is to have wraparound services where people can get IDs and get mental health services. So we can also look at that in our development of the standards.
That'd be great. And definitely agree with the 24-hour staff close by or on site. I would say if we could say on site preferred, strongly encourage if we can't require it. And then also, I didn't see anything regarding, and this could just be under a generic lock storage, but I'm sure bicycle facilities is something that's already encouraged or required, but just want to identify that should be in there, identified as well. And then wanted to also, I wanted to ask about just transportation in general. It says here near transit, and wanted to see, have we talked to BART about their locations that are sitting empty and no activation, that they can actually help us support us with this issue as well.
Sarah might have updates on the 2 BART properties, but I do not have any.
Okay.
I don't have any updates on BART, and I don't know that they've been part of any of the conversations related to these solutions, but we can certainly reach out. I just don't know. Some of their timelines are a little different than they were the last time I chatted with them, just because of some of the turnover that's happened with BART. But we can certainly continue to have conversations with them and see what their interest might be in looking at any of their sites as potential options for this. I just don't know how that aligns with some of their other goals and their objectives for development on their properties.
Totally understand. I just see these huge developments that are happening near BART stations that are way more than 512 units that could actually address a lot of these issues, and they're not developing anything in Hayward, and now we are looking at different options that are going to look at different parts of the neighborhood, which is, I understand that we don't want to target one area. These are huge lots of land that are near public transit that are not in different communities that will probably feel impacted by this. So I just feel like we could get more bang for our buck if we look at those two sites. We're very fortunate to have two BART stations, but they're also a nuisance how they sit empty. And we're prioritizing cars over people living in a building. And so I think we need to look at what those plans are for BART and include this as part of their strategy. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I'm in support of all the recommendations, and I think the comments that everyone up here have brought up have been really good. The one, just a couple questions, or just a couple points I wanted to make. One is, I noticed the size of SROs, and I know that you've articulated the sizes here. And are there, standard? Are those the standard sizes? And I was going to ask, are there humane? Are there standards for humane conditions and so forth? And are those the sizes that we have here? Are they right in that space? I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so those are the HUD range,
Okay.
so the housing department. And then similar, like the Abode Housing Project has similar unit sizes, and then the tiny home village we've approved also has very similar size units in that range.
Okay, good. Safe parking, I agree with all the comments up here. I just want to, send a, sort of raise a warning flag or a caution flag. I think that's even better. If we start to see these come about, as you're talking, I'm even trying to think, where in the city would some of these places be? But maybe that's another topic for another day. But I just wanted to see in the criteria here that cleanliness standards, hygiene standards. On the news, I think it was last night, I believe, the city of San Jose, the public health department, was identifying some type of a stomach infection that they were slowly sort of identifying in some of the parking spaces that they had. And while they might be safe, whereas people are not hurting one another, they may be unsafe in terms of public health. And so I just, we need to, I don't want us to let go of public health standards, and whatever we do, whether it's parking or whether it's increasing density. I know that was that was mentioned up here. We just make sure there's standards in here for health and for wellness, because I don't want us to, and I know this is not what we said up here, but I don't want us to start upticking density where it just becomes unsafe. And so I just want to sort of put a caution flag there. Let's see. And then I just wanted to just reiterate, and I'm sure you wrote this down, but just making sure that there's, when we start looking at senior housing and senior spaces, having standards and or metrics that they're safe, and that there is constant inspection, normalized inspection, frequent inspections, so that seniors and are safe. And I would even go so far as to say, on the flip side, on the other side of the age spectrum, I know we have up here approved developments for foster youth, for example. So if we do approve more of those, that there are standards around safety and other kinds of protections for kids in these spaces. I'll end on this. I sit on the Alameda County Mayor's Conference Housing and Homelessness Task Force, and there has been a report published. It is in draft form, and the cities are currently looking at the plan, and they're we're giving them an opportunity to give us feedback on the plan. We've also shared the plan with county and with social services with the county. We're just waiting for them to give us their edits and their commentaries. And what I liked about this report that you have put together is that what we have done is we put together a long-range strategy and a short-range strategy. And this right here, I think, is tightly coupled with the long-range strategies that we've been trying to accomplish regionally throughout the county. We have a lot of short-term strategies, doing cleanups and making sure people have food and making sure people have services and so forth. But when I see some of the plans that we have here, I'm going to be looking forward to sharing this with my colleagues on the Mayor's Conference so that maybe we can start. I know San Leandro was mentioned up here, but if we can get more cities on board to do this, that would be great. And I do know that Councilmember Syrup had asked for another bite at the apple. Wasn't sure whether you wanted to or not. Okay. Okay. Do you have what you need, Director Bowser? And
Yes, I do. Thank you very much.
perfect. Thank you very much. So I'd like to close this item and move on to move on to our public hearing, item 17, 18, and 19. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to forego staff report and come straight to council and see if council members had any questions regarding this. Then I'll open up for public comment, and then I'll come back for a vote. And so is that okay with you, Director Rollman?
It is. Could I briefly introduce Management Analyst Manny Grewal? She is the project manager for the Lighting and Landscape Districts, and online via Zoom is our engineer of record, Kyle Tankard from SCI, if there is questions.
Great, thank you. So what I'd like to do is I'll just come straight to council and see if if anybody up here has any comment, public or questions or comments. No? So I'd like to close, I'd like to close this part and see if there's any public comment, and I don't see any public comment online, or I don't have a public comment card, and so we have to take this sort of in a package vote, right? So.
She said one by one.
Oh, one by one. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, okay. So if I can get a motion on item number 17.
I'll move the item.
Moved by Councilmember Andrews. Second by Councilmember Syrup. No, by Councilmember Goldstein. And if there are no further questions, we can vote. And item passes unanimously with 7 votes. Move on to item number 18.
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilmember Roach, seconded by Councilmember Andrews. And if there are no other questions, Madam City Clerk. And it unanimously passes with 7 votes. Item number 18.
I feel really passionate about maintenance, being a Keep Hayward Cleaning liaison, so I'm going to move the item again.
Moved by our Keep Hayward Cleaning Green warrior, Councilmember Andrews. Second by Councilmember Goldstein. And if there are no other questions, Madam City Clerk, take the vote.
Mayor, and I just for the record, no public comment.
And there are no
for
public,
the
yes,
3
yes,
items.
yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Yes. And I'm no fortune teller, but Mr. Rollman, I think it's going to unanimously pass.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
We just voted on 18. We're moving to 19.
Yes.
I think we voted twice on 18.
Hold on, Mr. Rollman. I just want to get a clarification on a technical point. We voted 17, 18, and 19, and I think we voted twice on 18, or did we?
Yes, but that should have been 19.
Okay.
With Councilmember Andrews moving.
Yes.
And was it Councilmember Roach seconding?
Goldstein.
Goldstein, yes.
Yeah, so you'll make the corrections in the minutes? Or should we just vote again?
No, it will be reflected
Okay.
correctly in the minutes.
Okay, so we voted on item 17, 18, and 19.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, no, absolutely. Yeah. We're going to call you back. Okay, thank you. Next, we have item number 20, which is the master fee schedule. Adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 2025 master fee schedule and finding the action is exempt from CEQA review. And we're going to move to the Finance Director Gonzalez, and I'm going to ask the Finance Director to hold to forego staff report on this, but what I want to do is I just would like to ask the interim city manager, really sort of what's the big change really in this report, because I think it has to do with the fire department fee structure. So I just wanted to get clarification on
really
that.
the changes in the in this update are mostly incremental changes, due to cost of living, et cetera, or mandated changes. The most notable is the change to we're adding fees related to the use of Fire Station 6 Training Center, mostly for other agencies to come in and be able to use the training facilities, or the classroom, or the BART car, and run scenarios and that sort of thing, so that other agencies will have the ability to use it in the way that we envisioned for a regional training center. So.
Yep. Okay, and then also, so I'll forego staff report, and I'll come straight to council questions. And I just wanted to see if anybody had council questions up here. And Councilmember Bonilla, go right ahead.
There's also new fees in police services, right?
That's correct.
So it's mainly fire, and then these new fees for police, and then the rest are sort of incremental, very small increases. Okay, so I just have to ask the question. Just go with me for a minute. You know, when I was on the Planning Commission in here, I constantly think, how do we, and I'm not saying we should, but how do we make sure that we're incentivizing developers to build inclusionary affordable housing? So, and perhaps one of the ways of doing that is by raising the in lieu fee, so it's not like, because I almost think now, if I understand it correctly, there's really no financial benefit to the developer by picking one or the other. So would there be a way to, change the in lieu fees so that it disincentivizes folks from paying the fee and more so encourages the building of inclusionary housing?
Yeah, I think I'll let Director Bowser answer that question, if you wouldn't mind.
And I know we use the in lieu fees for a bunch of great things, but just, that one question.
Yeah, I think, raising the fees would require another nexus study to be done, and that analysis to be completed. And then through that process, then council could take that action if you so desired to increase the fees. At this point, we're basing it on the past, and through that adoption and with those changes in establishing the fees that we have, the only thing that was part of that is sort of this incremental increase based on, basically cost of living adjustments, so to speak. So if council wanted to do that, that would require a whole nother nexus study and that analysis to be done if we were going to increase fees beyond where they're currently set.
Got it. because I mean, it's like 4 cents and 5 cents. So I mean, it's so nominal, But I do understand the need for a nexus study, and those are my only comments on this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
Or actually, this is a legislative item. I'll close council questions, open for public comment. I don't see anybody online or in the chamber, and I'll return up here to the dais, and I believe Councilmember Syrup had something.
I'll move it.
Thank you. Moved by Councilmember Syrup. The second by Councilmember Zermeño. And if there are no further questions or comments, Madam City Clerk, go ahead and we can take the vote. And the item passes 7-0, unanimous. Thank you. Next, I move to item number 21. Item number 21 is the military equipment use. Adopt a resolution approving the Hayward Police Department's annual military equipment use report for April 2023 through March 2024 and renewing ordinance 22-06, adopting military equipment use policy number 706 in compliance with Assembly Bill number 481, and I believe this report will come to us by way of the police chief, Chief Brian Matthews.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. I do have a brief PowerPoint that I'm going to present tonight, and I think that somebody's going to help me share that thing in there, right? I haven't done this online in quite a while. I apologize, I'm on the East Coast. Or do I need to share my screen?
I'll help you out. Give me a second here.
Thanks. While they're getting that loaded, I just want to offer a couple of things just as a reminder for council. So this is an annual requirement set forth by AB 481. This is actually our third year doing it. We did a very robust public engagement effort when we first came to you with this ordinance and this policy. There are no changes to the ordinance or the policy. So tonight we'll be asking for you all to vote to renew those two items. And then we are not asking for any new equipment that would fall into the category of military equipment. With that, I'll get started on the PowerPoint. Go ahead and next slide, please. Again, this is what we're here for tonight. Just kind of covered that. Next slide. Just some background information. Again, this is an annual process, and we'll be doing this every year from here on out. This presentation will look exactly like the one that we gave last year. Next slide. So this slide reflects the use of military equipment for the time period that you see here, April 2023 through March 2024. I do want to point out that there is an error on the slide. Number 3, the UAS, which is our drones, that should be 64. We left the 4 off on that, so that's on me. I apologize for that. This reflects the number of times that these devices were used in the field. And then again, at the bottom of the slide, you'll see all of the military equipment that was not utilized during this reporting period. Next slide, please. These are some of the costs associated with our military equipment, including acquisition, training, and maintenance. The total personnel costs over this period were $182,561, and there were no storage or transportation costs associated with these items. Next slide, please. And this is just a visual representation of the fiscal impact, the portion of our budget that goes to equipment that has been deemed military equipment. It's a very small percentage. Next slide, please. So in terms of projected acquisitions, we do anticipate on an annual basis having to acquire additional equipment. Some of that can be anticipated, some of that cannot. We have items that break down, they reach their service life, unanticipated usage, and those are handled on a case-by-case basis depending on operational needs. We kind of classify items as consumables. And so our acquisitions or anticipated acquisitions will remain consistent with previous years. Consumables are as follows: ammunition, diversionary devices, chemical agents, and specialty munitions. And that's basically because once they are used, they are no longer usable. Next slide, please. And then non-consumables, these are some projected acquisitions for fiscal year 2025. We anticipate the need to purchase a new robot. We anticipate the need to purchase additional drone units. So these are in addition to those that we already have in our inventory. And then the rest of the equipment that you see listed here is replacement equipment for items that have either reached their service life or anticipated needs throughout the next year with respect to training. When we talk about ammunition, especially impact munitions, that includes folks that we are hiring and sending to the police academy. And includes training that involves not only our field personnel, but our special response unit, et cetera. Next slide, please. And so tonight, our recommendation is to renew the ordinance, to renew the policy. Again, there are no changes to either of those documents, and then approve what we anticipate needing to replace in fiscal year 2025. And with that, I will answer any questions that the council has.
Thank you. And then before I go to public comment, I will start up here on the dais, and I see Councilmember Bonilla first.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two quick questions. The first is in the staff report, because this did go to the Public Safety Committee, I was just wondering if it could be reflected that this was approved by the Public Safety Committee, because there was a vote there and we approved it. So it was more than just discussion and review, but it was actually approval, and now it's coming to the full council. I guess that was more of a comment. So my question is, there was on the use of equipment on one of your slides, Chief, there was like a rifle that was used twice, maybe a carbine rifle, or I don't know if it was used twice. It just said number 2 next to it. What does that number 2 mean? Does that mean like it was shot twice, or just pulled out twice, or, just, I guess, can you just help us understand that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. That was directly related to the officer-involved shooting that took place on Foothill Boulevard, up behind Safeway. There were 2 officers that were involved in that, and so those are reflected in that number. 2 officers using the carbine rifle in that particular incident.
I see. All right. That's my only question. I asked the rest of them in the Public Safety Committee meeting, so thank you for the report, Chief.
Thank you. Councilmember Zermenio.
Thank you, Mayor. And Chief, thank you very much. I like the report. I still don't like the use of military equipment. It should be public safety equipment, but that's another argument. One quick question. Why would a command vehicle be considered military equipment? Excuse my ignorance.
That's a great question, and I don't know that I have an answer for you. I think that was included by the legislators who authored this particular bill. There's some items in there that, I'm not sure how they necessarily got selected. The command vehicle is not only a backup dispatch center for us in the event of an emergency, but it's also a unified command center that both not only the PD but HFD, the fire department, can use in a significant critical incident. It's something that we train with on a regular basis, and will be an integral piece of a response to a major disaster, a major incident here in the city.
Yeah, that's what I understand. So it's very unusual. So thank you very much, and tell all your men and women, please, to be safe out there. And you too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilmember Councilmember Syra.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report, Chief Matthews, and also thank your teammates who helped construct it. There's a lot of detail in this one, and I appreciate you putting it together. I feel like I'm hearing 2 things. There's not a request for new equipment, but then there is a request for 6 new drones. Can you just help me clarify the need for new drones and also how many the department currently has?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the list. I think we have 6 or 7 currently. We're looking to add an additional 6. There's a couple of different reasons for that. There's some specialty units in the department that would benefit from having their own dedicated drone unit. So our crime scene technicians who do crime scene reconstruction, our traffic unit that does accident reconstruction, and then just from a kind of a streamlining some of the work as it happens in the field. For example, if we have staff capacity and the drone unit capacity, and we're doing an active search for an armed offender in, let's say, a 4-block area, we can have multiple drones in the air at the same time, which will help expedite things in terms of staff time to resolve an incident that unfolds in the field. The other issue that we run into is battery life. And so one of the things that we found is you get about a half an hour on a standard drone unit, about a half an hour of battery life. And so, being able to interchange drones to keep the, in operation moving is essential. So those are 6 additional units to the 6 or 7 that we already have in our inventory.
Understood. Thank you for the answer. And I mean, currently, what are the obstacles for different departments within the police department to share the drones? Given that there's already 6 or 7, how many are able to fly concurrently based on staffing?
It depends. We have a number of employees who are trained to operate those. They all work different shifts. They have different assignments. And so it really depends on, what the shift makeup is, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, a specialty item that not everybody necessarily has access or the training or expertise to operate. So it really depends. It depends. I don't know. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
It does answer my question. So I guess my last question here would be, is this an issue of not having enough drones, or is this an issue of not enough of our officers or police staff being trained on how to use them?
I think right now, what we're asking for from the drone perspective, it's not enough drones. I think that we would benefit by having additional units in that program to be able to use and train on. You need to have some in the field that are operational, and then we are consistently having staff train on those. So I think it's more the additional units than it is right now the pilot capacity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Roach.
Thanks. Just to follow up, I had a similar question about, the comment that we're not making any changes, but we do, but there are some budget items attached. And so I just wanted to ask, as far as, AB 41 is concerned, this is no change in the actual equipment. You're just talking about upgrading, the robot will be a 1-for-1 change, right? That's there's a robot, that one will now go out of commission, you'll get a new one. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so the original 2 that we listed in our equipment list, that company has gone out of business. They no longer manufacture those units, and we no longer have the capacity to repair them if they become damaged or unserviceable. So we're replacing those with new units. And and just for clarification, the no new equipment, we're not asking for any new equipment that would be classified as military equipment that we don't already possess. I think that's probably something that I could have clarified a little bit better in my presentation.
So no new types of equipment.
Yeah, new types of equipment. We are not asking for anything like that.
Okay. And then as far as the budget items here, are these all things already contemplated in your budget, in the police department budget?
Yes, we're not going to be coming to council asking for any additional funding for these.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The one question I have is, and I don't know if this was actually realized in this round of drones, but if I'm not mistaken, I heard that.
But if that is the case, we're always happy to shop Hayward.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay. With that said, you're welcome. With that said, I'd like to close questions up here, open up for public comment. And I do see a hand raised online. And Johanna, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, so I had what was mentioned before of observing somebody who needs to be kept an eye on. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no more public comment online, and before I ask Councilmember Bonilla to
Mr.
move
Mayor?
this. Yes.
We have one more person. The person actually lowered her hand, but Zoom user had her hand raised.
But the
So I
hand
guess-
is not up anymore.
Yeah,
So,
okay. She changed
so
her
I'm
mind.
going to close public comment. And before I call on Councilmember Bonilla, I would typically not do this, but Chief Matthews, do you want to tell us in what type of circumstances would we deploy a drone?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have an entire page dedicated to that program on our website that is available to the public as well as the policy. We have a standalone drone policy that folks can take a look at if they so choose. We also kind of catalog all of our usage and the purpose for each usage on our website. There's a running tab there that folks can access as well to see when and where and why these things are used. Typically, to simplify it, they're used for unfolding in progress incidents. It's the equivalent of the use of a helicopter. So if we're conducting a search for an offender, if we're dealing with a barricaded subject, if we're working, an in progress crime, that's typically when these are used. We also use them to conduct interior searches when we have the legal authority to do so. It's the same as our robot. The only difference is that it flies, so we could put it inside of a structure to visually clear space before we actually have to put our people in there as a safety precaution. So those are some examples of when they get used. We will also use them when a judge authorizes a warrant, search warrant. So those are some examples of when they get used. And I would encourage folks to go to the website because there's a ton of information on that program there, and not just on drones, but any of this equipment. I'm always happy to have a conversation with folks, answer any questions or address any concerns or accept any complaints that anybody has regarding these items.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And so I will now call upon Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for your responsibility in both the management and the use of this equipment. I'm happy to move the item, Mayor.
Moved by Councilmember Bonilla. The second by Councilmember Goldstein, and I just wanted to thank my colleagues on the Public Safety Committee, Councilmember Bonilla and Councilmember Roach, and Madam City.
I had a comment, Mayor.
Oh,
if
yes.
We're still in the comment section.
Absolutely.
Sorry, not to ruin the momentum.
No. Go ahead.
Just wanted to thank the Public Safety Committee as well for their work on this. Wanted to encourage for the next report in future years to reflect the dates of community engagement. I was surprised to see that the Public Safety Committee and the meeting wasn't included on this report. And it's also helpful for us to understand how often we're getting community feedback. Some of the community engagement sessions happen prior to the policy being passed in the first place. And so I want folks to know just how much conversation is happening around this. In the future, I would also appreciate not having this on the last meeting date of the year. It makes it difficult for us to receive feedback, maybe change course if there is concern around it. I am grateful for the thoughtfulness that went into this policy. I did want to share that the carbine's role in the recent officer-involved shooting is why I do have reservations around military weaponry being in our police department in the first place. So I appreciate Councilmember Bonilla's question around that. And prior to my being on council, I was concerned with, alongside many other members, around drones entering the force and it becoming a slippery slope for more drones. So I do have reservations around this item. I'm going to be abstaining tonight, but I understand the thought that was put into this, and I do want to thank you, Police Chief, for your thoughtfulness around this. I think as we make changes towards this process and how we evaluate our military equipment, I may find myself being more supportive in the future, but I want to thank you and the rest of my colleagues for their time reviewing this.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion made by Councilmember Bonilla, seconded by Councilmember Goldstein. Madam City Clerk, if you can take the vote. And we have 6 ayes and 1 abstention. Thank you. Move on to council reports and announcements. And let me see, Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Andrews for her leadership in organizing a wonderful Juneteenth event on Saturday. I know Councilmember Roche was there all day as well, but Councilmember Andrews, thank you for just making sure that we're, saving space for these important events, and thank you for your leadership and really pulling our community together to, stay together in such an important time and to recognize the fact that, freedom is here, but we still have a long way to go, and you keeping that alive and front and center for all of us is important. So just wanted to go on the record and say thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zermenio.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see, can we turn on our magical screen, please? There's an invitation to hopefully see you this Saturday at the All America Festival and drink and sing Happy Birthday USA at 11:30 more or less, and we'll be there from 11 to 3 at Eden Mansion at Tennyson and Hesperian. So hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to give a report. Last week, from Wednesday to Sunday, I was at the United States Conference of Mayors, where mayors from all over the country, we all met. We were from small towns, medium-sized towns, and large metropolitan cities. And it was really good. I participated in sessions on economic development, public safety, education and workforce development, and I could not be at the Juneteenth event on Saturday, but not to forget about Councilmember Andrews, I attended a session on public art, and it was pretty good. And when they send us the slide deck, I want to show you. It was pretty impressive. The panelists were they were the producers of Burning Man, and they were also the producers of Burning Man, and then they were also the real estate company that funds one of the largest outdoor mural events in I think either Miami or Daytona or something like that. It was beautiful, and I should, it was great to put in a bit of a plug, because the designer and the architect of the Burning Man statue lives in San Leandro, right? Yeah, exactly. So anyways, I got to flex a little bit for the Hayward-San Leandro relationship. So anyways, it was a great trip. Got back Sunday, and it was certainly well worth it. So next is, I believe, Councilmember Zermenio, did you already make your okay, so that's my report. Councilmember Andrews.
I wanted to say thank you to everyone who came out to Juneteenth. I wanted to thank West Coast Food Society, Treasures Unleashed, and the Best Me Conference, who helped put it on. And special thanks to Zach Abadi from the CMO office. He did a lot of hard work. And thanks to my fellow council members, Dan Goldstein, George Syrup, and Ray Bonilla for your contributions to the event. It was much, much appreciated. And Julie Roche for putting a lot of sweat equity into the day. So thank you. And I know Councilmember Zermenio also stopped by, and I look forward to his event on Saturday. And I also want to give kudos to the economic development team, because they're doing a lot of ribbon cuttings. There is a ribbon cutting at El Pollo Loco this Thursday, but they did ribbon cuttings, I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 in a week. So they're doing a lot of hard work on East Bay Eats and T Villa. All these different restaurants are popping up all over the city. So I just wanted to thank them for their hard work.
Thank you. Councilmember Roach.
Thanks. I just wanted to also congratulate Councilmember Andrews on a wonderful Juneteenth event. She was everything that day. She was talent manager, food and beverage manager, facilities, like all. She was amazing. She was everywhere, as well as Zach Abadi. He was great that day. It was a wonderful event for the community, and really well attended, and awesome job, Councilmember Andrews.
thank you. And, I also wanted to also announce and remind people that this week was the launch of the Words for Lunch program at the downtown Hayward Library and at Weeks Park Library. And, I'll tell you, it was kind of cool. Today, I walked downstairs to go grab lunch, and I happened to be walking behind these two kids, and they were talking about, they're all, hey man, are we gonna do Words for Lunch all summer? And so they were talking about how great it was, and they were totally, talking it up with each other. And, I walked up to them and I said, do you know who I am? No, I'm kidding. But it was kind of neat to see from the third and fourth person, these two kids talking about Words for Lunch and about how they got lunch and they were reading, and so it was pretty good. So. Okay, Councilmember Andrews.
Just real quickly, I also want to thank Paul and Larry from maintenance and Liz from facilities. They did a lot of hard work up to the event and the day of, so thank you.
Perfect.
That's all.
Perfect. So good. There's a lot of stuff going on this summer around town. So next is we don't have any council referrals. And I'd like to adjourn tonight. Tonight is our last meeting of this session. Our next council meeting will be August 20th, 2024. And, I just wanted to say, while we will be on break, doesn't mean that we will not stop working. We still go to meetings and we still answer phone calls and emails and so forth. But I did want to close by saying, again, I think the council can conclude this evening feeling accomplished. We did a lot of work this session. If you go back to our budget workshop and look at the PowerPoint with all of the accomplishments that we have done in the area of housing and economic development and public safety, I think we can go into July and August feeling accomplished and knowing that what we did this past year was good and really did the city proud. I wanted to thank all my colleagues for their contributions this year. I wanted to thank our interim city manager, Dustin Clausen, for really taking on this role and really stepping in and stepping up and really supporting the council over this time while we transition to our next phase. And again, Mr. City Attorney, the Dean of the City Attorney's Office wanted to thank you for everything you've done for us this year. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you in the month or so coming. And of course, Madam City Clerk, you and your team have been phenomenal. I know you will be taking a little bit of a rest, but when you come back, we have a major 4-month stretch coming ahead of us. So I wanted to just let you and your colleagues know, rest, rejuvenate, and we'll see you when we get back. And with that said, ladies and gentlemen, meeting's adjourned.